Welcome everyone to our discussion of Sefer Darkei Talmud. This Sefer is a gem, as I'm sure you're seeing. Let's just get our minds back into a little overview here. What we did was we discussed, I have to close this technical thing. I'm going to start again because I have to open this with my old Word. So it'll look. Here's Word 2000. Remember that? Okay. I put it on the machine. Okay. Welcome everyone to a discussion of Darkei Talmud. We're, as usual, going to give just a brief overview to get us involved. Three basic principles that he brings out is that if you want to get Torah wisdom, you're going to have to work and sit on that book a lot. Okay, Yaber B'Yeshiva means to go over a text many times, to really work at it, to get the understanding. And the third most important principle is after you put in all that work to really daven, that Kodesh Baruch Hu gives you that chachma, because it's not it's chachma elokis. It really comes from kisei hakavod, from Kodesh Baruch Hu himself, and it's a schus to get it. So you have to work in all the logic and higayon and all the methods you can, and then you really have to daven to Hashem that you get real Torah and not just imaginary Torah. Okay, now he explained that the basic format of iyun, you see, is to be iyun, and that's really his method here. We're not talking about bikiyas. We're not talking about just gliding over information. We're trying to analyze things very carefully. So the guiding principle here is dikduk halashon. You have to be careful with all the language that's said. And the reason why I do this visual formatting is because when you read Rishonim, Kol Shekain the Gemara, Kol Shekain the Chumash, it's very easy to go very quickly and create general concepts, general ideas of what's going on, fuzzy concepts, and live with them. But the iyun is a question of being precise with the language being used. And what I use this diagrammatic method that I call visual logic is to slow us down and to see the value of each and every word here, because the great Chachamim write in a very, very brief and concise way. So here, the basic principle he tells us is dikduk halashon. You have to start with that. You have to be exacting on language. But he also tells us what to look for. You have to, when you're analyzing, let's say we're analyzing a Mishnah, is there extra language, a repetition of content, okay, called kafel inyan. Remember another thing that I always bring out. This is, we're going to get through these two concepts again and again. Lashon and inyan. Lashon means the physical words being used to express the idea, and inyan means the content being spoken about. Okay, so we have to make sure that there's no extra words and the content is not repetitious. It has to be the Mishnah. It says it once and not again. So that's the rule number one. Rule number two, chiddush. Everything that says has to be a chiddush, either in inyan or in the statement, in the mamar, in the words. Everything has to be a new idea that you haven't heard before, and what's not that, not that you haven't heard before, that you would have thought differently. That's chiddush. Chiddush means you would have thought something else, and I'm going to tell you something. You would have thought that the sun goes around the earth. I'm going to tell you a chiddush. No, really, the earth goes around the sun. Chiddush goes against what you would have thought. Okay, so that's number two. Everything that's written by the Chachamim achidushim, they don't have to tell you if the sky is blue. And if they do tell you the sky is blue, it must be that it's the chiddush that you would have thought it's another color. Okay, the third great rule is the rule of shinui, change. So we had extra, nothing can be extra, everything has to be a chiddush, and the third great rule is change. Again, shinui lashon, there's the word again, shinui inyan, and he adds shinui din. Whenever you see any types of changes in a text, the language changes, and the order changes. We said about this, loads of examples. A flag, you have to say why. Shinui din, if you see two cases that have different clause, you have to say manishtan, what happened. Why is the shore different than the bore? And okay, if all of a sudden we switch from one topic to the next, there has to be a kesher between, like the kids always say in Hebrew, either ma kesher, what's the relation between one subject matter and the next? Okay. So you have to ask. Now, what we concentrated on was the Meforshim. And in the Meforshim, he gave us a short list of what to look for in the Meforshim. Okay? And understand what they're doing, what's bothering Rashi, what are they doing? Okay? Well, they're just talking. No, they're not talking. They're being very precise in what they're saying. They're either metak and lashon, they're fixed, look at that. Hyperlink. They're fixing language. Okay, that means, like he said, shor bor means shor shell. Shor ish, it says in the Chumash, when a shor ish does damage. So Rashi says shor shell ish, fixing the grammar. Our Mishnah, in that we're always doing in Baba Kama says Gesher Hezek Chav Hamazik. Bothers the Gemara, says really should be Chayav. Explains it should be Chayav. Tana is Yerushalmi. Okay, so that's number one, Metak and Lashon. The second one is Mefarish Inyan, and he explains that there's two reasons why people have to Mefarish. Either because beginning people would not understand it because you need outside premises, or because the language itself is something that's strange. For instance, the word mav in the Mishnah, we said, is a strange language. It doesn't exist in common Hebrew. So it's what does it mean? Someone has to explain that to you. But the concept of a mamatzino, that's something that you have to know from another place. Okay, so a beginning person may need to be taught that. So that's Mefarish. He just explains because you need outside premises, you have to know some other Gemaras, or because the concept is strange. The third thing that it does, the Meforshim do, is Mataretz Kushas. Like Tosfos, if you Tosfos says, V'im Tomar, if you'll ask this question, this Kasha, I will answer it this way. So that's the third thing that the Meforshim do, the Mataretz difficulties that you'll have. Third thing they do is Menias Fekos. They bring up questions. Okay? Bring up questions. How come the order in Baba Kama switches from this way to that way? Okay, this question, is that a kasha? Is that a, let's say a simple question, Manola. How do we know that there's four types? Where's the source that there's four types of Nezikin? So that would be a question. Bring up questions, okay? It's not an attack. A kasha, to Mataretz, a kasha means he's answering a difficulty. A question just means there's information that's lacking here. Shayla, as we learned in Derek Tfunos. And the fifth thing is Nishmami Perish Acher. Why he's saying what he's saying is because you would have thought something else by reading the simple meaning of the word. It says that Hashem put his hand in Mitzrayim. You think Hashem makes a hand because it says physical hand. No, Hashem doesn't have a hand, it's only a mashal. So he has to be Nishma Miperashach. Okay. Now, we, Avi, last time we went through did we do our application last time?
Yeah, that was last week. We went through Rashi.
We went to Rashi, right? Okay.
Right.
Okay. Beseda. So let's go a little further. I'll go up to here. Okay. Okay. Here's some of the things. Oops. Okay. I just wrote some of the things in English of how to be medayek in the language. Okay. And here's some Rashis that I'm just going to quickly go over so that you get the idea a little better of Tikkun Lashon, Perish Inyan, Mataretz Kusha, and etc. Okay. So we said the Rashi said when it said lo zeh v'zeh sheyesh behem ruach chaim. Okay, in the Mishnah, if you remember, it said our Tzaddik Shobal Ma'amer Havet, said lo hari shok ha'maven, lo hari shol, shteihem. And then the third one it said lo zeh v'zeh, and Rashi says elu shloshtam. And saying all three that we mentioned before are not like the boar. Okay, the shor and the mava and the hever are not like the boar. Okay, so that's a question of Matak and Lashon because it says zeh v'zeh. Zeh v'zeh means how many? Two. Zeh v'zeh. So when you would think that when you get down to boar and it said v'zeh v'zeh, v'lo hari zeh v'zeh kahari abor, it only said two items. So Rashi's Matak and Lashon, and he says no, it means elu shlot, three that went before. Is that clear? Are you involved in that? I don't want to lose you. Just
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, Beseda. Okay, Meforish Inyan, Rashi is an example. Arba Avos Nazik, and he says, Avos kor lahanak b'chasi b'krov v'hedya. Okay, what is an Av? Okay, so we said there's 2 points here. First, he has to tell you what an Av is, but actually we said in the deeper level he's he is actually Nishmami Perishach here. Of course, later on the Gemara is going to say an Av is because the simple meaning of Av is not that it's Meforish in the Chumash. That's a later, that's a secondary meaning. The simple meaning is that, like the Gemara says, Avos Mikali Katoldos. That's a categorical concept. Okay. Mitaris Kusha, Rashi says Shor V'Bor, Kasei Shem Kasivim Plasha Sidram the Mishnah. That's a teretz too. Why does it say Shor B'Mav and Hever? It's no logical order. Remember, things have to be done in a seder. So tell me, go from the animal to man, or go, as we said, according to Shmuel, if you're going to say that it's regel and Shane, why does the boar come in the middle? Okay, so Rashi says the seder here is according to how the Pesukim are laid out in the Chumash. Okay, the Rush here I wrote the Tosfos HaRush says Nakat Shor Bereishit the Seder Lo Hari the Seifa. Really, the reason why the Seder here is all mixed up is because it really wants to talk about the Seder that's presented in the Seifa. Ubasrei Nachat Bod Domel Teva Shor. Excuse me, so the Nakat Shor Bereishit the Seder Lo Hari the Seifa. Okay, we have to investigate that carefully. But he says, Ubasrei Nakat Bod the Domel Teva Shor. So it's very interesting. Here's, remember we said that some people want to say that shor and bor are put together and they're not really in the Seder. The one that's out of Seder is bor when you analyze it. It should be at the end. So why was it put in between there? So the Rush says it's because it's such. It rhymes with, bor rhymes with shor. So it's a memory device that was put together. So that's the kasha. The kasha is why is this order strange? The bor is placed in the middle there, and as we analyze it, we see. So there's two different answers here. Okay, but that's what they're dealing with. They're matar tzakasha. Maniyas Tafik, Rashi says, Arba Avos Nazikno b'Gemara Meforish Hai Niu Toldos. The simple question is that the Gemara says is Arba Avos Nazikin, it says Avos, and it never talks about the Toldos. In question, why not? Where is it? So Rashi says, no, don't relax. The Gemara will talk about it, and it's going to talk about it in the Gemara later on. Okay, so that's a question. The question is very nice. You told us there's 4 avos, but where were the toldos? So the Gemara is going to talk. When we said it comes from a brisa later on. Okay, Nishma mi perish acher. Here's an example. Tosfos says, Lo hari ashor kahari amada. He says, perish ein kulaso shel shor kulaso shel amada. K'noforsh l'kamim Gemara. And he says, ve'ein perisho kashar makomo shebetalmud. This Lo Hari is not like the other places in the Talmud. Normally in the Talmud when it says Lo Hari Zeh Kahari Zeh, it wants to come to a tzad hashava. It eliminates factors and says it's a common quality that's causing the din. Here's a totally different explanation, says Tosfos. It means that if I had shor written, I would not learn Mava. And I'm not trying to eliminate chumras on each side and come to a tzad hashava. I'm trying to tell you that no, if shor was written by itself, I wouldn't learn Mava. So that's a secondary, that's a chiddush in Lo Hari, and he's nishma from the parish, which is a common parish throughout. And he explains why they had to do it here at the end of the Tosfos. Okay? The other thing he said was check after in that short list is to check whether our girsa is the girsa of the Mefarish that you're commenting on. So we noticed that Rashi says Mava, he doesn't say Ve'amav. Okay? The Mishnah says Abrav Zazik and Ashur V'habor Ve'hamav. Rashi says Mava. How come he doesn't have the hay there? Okay? Now, some of these diukim could be significant, some not. You have to at least recognize them, and then if there's nafkaminas, you have to try to determine them. Okay? So, what else is here? V'ash take one is the verb pirsha having medakdek bo ro mahu hefcho v'habilu v'chem v'mashe nishma mashe doche. Okay? So, what did I read? Oh, this was interesting. Okay. We have to say now that you said Rashi, right? For instance, he said, Lo v'zeh v'zeh sheyesh lam ruach chaim, kahari abor she'ein bo ruach chaim, right? And Rashi said, Elu shloshtan. Okay. So we said, hey, what was the other possibility and why didn't Rashi take it? Okay. The hefko lo gimel ella beis shor v'mava. Maybe it's really, maybe you have to work through the text and say maybe it is only talking about two, because it started talking about lo shor kahari mava, but lo v'zeh v'zeh is not like the Aish, and maybe continue shor and mava really is not like the boar. So how does Rashi know it means all three of them? Okay. So you have to always understand what he's pushing away and why he's pushing it away. That's the second rule. Okay? So that's a very quick view, but it's if you take the short list, there's not so many things there. And whenever you see a Rashi, Tosfos, Rush, or anyone talking, you say, like, really, what's his aim here? Is he Mitakan Lushan? Is he Mitar Takasha? Is he Meforish and Inyan? Is he Nishmami Perish Acher? That's basic talk. Also, what the strength of this book gives you is you can check out whether you're saying something that's sensible. You know what you're saying. You say, look, I have a problem of Shinui Lushan here. It must be understood. Or I have a problem that the text seems to imply X. It's mashma from this X, but another Gemara comes against it. Or there's an internal contradiction in the text that starts off talking in this A, B, C, D. All of a sudden it goes D, A, D, A, D, C, E, whatever, different order. So you're very consciously aware of what you're doing. So you have both a toolkit to understand what other people are doing and also a toolkit to apply to the text itself. Okay? They're totally, I hope you can appreciate this is a different way of handling the text, okay, than we're learning in both the Tfunus and the Higayom. They're going to be talking about structural patterns of thought. But here we're going to be talking about the style of presentation. Okay, the Ramchal tells us you have to be careful about style because it doesn't spell it out. But here, the Darkei Gemara is going to tell us clearly what stylistic things to look out for. And that makes your learning much more clearer, much more conscious, and also makes your teaching much clearer too. Okay, so now here is that was our discussion of the Meforshim, okay? Where we're holding, we just finished our short discussion. Remember, we jumped to the end of the book where he gives a more detailed discussion, but these few principles something that we really should gather together. And anytime we're looking at Rashi, Tosfos, Rosh, or the Vilna Gaon, or the Chazon Ish, or anyone we're listening to, we have to ask ourselves, now what is this person trying to do? Is he trying to solve a problem, trying to clarify? What is he trying to do? Okay, now here's a very important little section. He says, the Derech HaYashar, hu, shitayen kol ma shetocha lahavini b'lamara v'achar kach tavo alav. He says, when you're dealing with Meforshim, the Derech HaYashar, the straight way is really to do all the iyum first in the text that you're dealing with, in the Gemara, to understand everything on your own, and then go to the commentary. V'roa gam roa imma shehavanta maskin imma shehu mefarshim lav. Then, after you've conceived what the text means in your own mind, you then go to the commentator, Rashi, Tosfos, whoever it is, and you say, hey, did he understand the text like I did? Now, this is a revolution for some people. There's a style of learning that says you read everything and then you understand what it says. The Darkei Gemara is presenting here a different attitude. He's saying, first handle the text yourself. What does it mean? What is it saying in the pashtus of the lashon? After you've conceived of what it means, then you go to the Mefarish, because he's got to add something to that. He can't just be repeating what the text says. There's no chiddush in doing that, especially the great chachamim that we have are never going to do things like that. So there must be something, saying something beyond the simple meaning of the text. So if you never get to the simple meaning, you'll never understand what they are adding. Okay? And so I always say, you get a kid in school, and now, nowadays, and everyone goes to school and they memorize that the earth goes around the sun. And that's it. They come home, they take the test, and that's it. That's given. But they never looked out the window and understood that for many, many centuries, that's not what appeared to be the reality. Okay? They just look at the maskana. And if you look at the reality, you'll say that the sun goes around the earth, not the earth around the sun. By investigating the Habanim, you can understand the Chiddush. Now you have to say to yourself, now why did they come to such Chiddush? Where did they come to that Chiddush? And through that, you understand, first of all, what the problem is and how it was solved. You have to then evaluate whether the solution was a correct solution, or there's other solutions also to the problem. Okay? And in the Gemara learning, it is so important. This is... I call it a revolution because people, I can't make a generalization, but a lot of people are not trained this way. I run into it many, many times. That's why I do this visual logic. When I give classes, I take the mission, I put it up there on the board, and I say, let's divide it up. What do you see? After you've done the work yourself, then you go to Rashi and say, hey, did he see it the way I see it? And then you have to ask yourself, why? Because Rashi is not going. If it's obvious, then why does Rashi have to talk about it? That's the basic understanding of this book. If I had to summarize this book in one statement, it's the word Peshita. In one word, Peshita. To realize the Chachamim are not saying simple things. But the only way you realize that is by first throwing yourself in, reading the text yourself, and saying, what does it say? After I see what it says, then I could see what they say it is. It says Hashem put his hand in Mitzrayim. I'm from Arkansas, actually from the Bronx. Hashem has a hand. Rashi, everyone says he doesn't have a hand. Why? It's a mashal. Why is it a mashal? Not a question. There comes the understanding. Of course, you're going to end up with the maskana, but the maskana is now has its proper relationship to the reality. You understand what was done. So that's why I say it's a revolutionary step for some, but it's a critical step for real understanding. Shitayen kol ma shetocha lahavini b'gemara v'achar tavo alav. Try to understand everything you can what the Gemara is saying, and then you go to the commentary. Does it make sense? And Rabbi Zimmer you say, is it sense or nonsense? Wait a minute. Is he saying what I'm saying? And if not, why? Now, after you understand what he's saying, then tichakor, investigate. Then you could say, wait a minute. I read the text. I read what he said. What is he now saying that I should not have said in the text? Umanishma. What is he trying to push away as a meaning or to avoid saying? And very, very important, ma hechrach purusho. What's the force? What's his proof that what he's saying is what it really means? Ki kol od shelo teda kavanas devarav. Before you understand his kavana, v'perishu hu rotze lekayim, eich teda mashu doche. If you don't understand in the second step what he wants to say, so how are you going to know what he pushes away? Always look at the Gemara and the Kasav. Oh, people forget this all the time. They learn Gemara, they never look at the Pesukim and the Chumash. I have a classical piece of Gemara that I do, of this Nezikin, of this Baba Kama. We start in the Chumash and we investigate, what does the Chumash say? So you have to do first the Gemara, the Kasav by itself, then do the commentary by itself, to look very carefully at the commentary. After you understand him and his Chiddush and why he said it, then you have to check out his whole Shita. Is it consistent throughout his understanding of different parts of the Gemara? Very important step. After you understand what you thought, what he thought, what's the hechrach, and what's the reason why you should change, then put what he says back into the Gemara itself. When you learn Tosfos, or the Rosh, any of the Chidushim b'halacha, remember he's a Rishon. So what you should do, and you understand what his kavanah was, or the questions he was raising, or the difficulties he was trying to solve, then you go back and push everything back into Rashi. Yesh l'gzor l'inyan divrei Rashi uleros, and see. Im hirgish bo v'nishma mimenu. See, did Rashi have the same kasha and disagree? He said, v'im shnei maskim b'derech echad. Or no, they both are really holding the same pshat. Like Tosfos a lot of times says, a perish Rashi. He agrees with Rashi. He doesn't agree, disagree all the time. Okay. O im mechulafim, or does Tosfos argue in some way with the perish of Rashi? Ubechlal yesh lecha b'chol hashmoli ayin l'das b'mahem maskimim u'malachim v'shitas echad. Now you have to keep together Shitas Rashi and to see at what points in the Shakavatari they're going to be agreeing, where they disagree, or b'mahem mukhlafim, where they're different. Okay, that's a mouthful. It's big, but at least we know that that's what's going on. Okay, and with these few tools, you have a tremendous, tremendous clarity of learning. The learning, instead of being a balagan of he says this and he says that and I disagree with him, and you know exactly what was said in the text, what he said about the text, and why he said it. And if you don't, you can raise your hand and say, I don't understand why. And you'll read Pnei Yeshua's, you'll read Rebbe Akiva Eiger's, you'll read Vilna Gaon's, you'll read the Chazon Ish, you'll read whoever you want, because but you're on the ball, you're in the track, you know what they're talking about, and it's just not a battle of words and thoughts. Okay. Let's go. Any questions on that? Again, we're talking a lot here, but these few little principles are very, very powerful. Very.
I mean, just one thing that I was thinking about is that he's saying to look at the Gemara first, and he used the word b'chol nasha tuchal. I guess that's because since one of the 6 things that Rashi does is to tell you an explanation of things that you didn't know what they meant for the beginner. So those things you're not going to know unless you look in Rashi. So if there's a new idea or concept or something, that's interesting in Rashi to tell you what the word means or what it's all about. Without looking at Rashi, you're not going to know what it means.
Yeah, but
That's
the
what I'm saying.
the Chiddush here is stumble, fall down. Say, I don't know what Mava means.
Right.
Then when Rashi explains, you understand, oh, you know why Rashi explained it? Because you shouldn't know what Mava meant. You know what I mean? The word arba, Rashi's not going to comment on, right? So there's a sensitivity to the text that you have to have and say, wait a minute, what is Mava? Now, is that not knowing Mava, is that not knowing arba? Is it the same thing? Is it just because I'm a beginner and really I don't know Hebrew? Or is it because it's a difficult word to understand? Okay, and that's why Rashi's talking about it. So it's very, very clear, because if Mava is a difficult word, you're going to find out that it's so difficult that Rav and Shmuel are going to fight about it. You know, you'll be set up.
This is Rafael Zucker.
Yes. Hi, Rafael.
Thank you very much. I've been listening for the last 2 hours. I just want to say the Gemara itself explains Mava later on and goes through it. So is he saying you should wait until you get to the Gemara later? How would you even know that the Gemara talks about it later?
Okay, there's a certain base that I brought that in as outside information. Okay, when you first read the text, there's a certain base level of let's say of Hebrew you should have. Like I said, everybody knows arba, but the word mava it's unusual. So now you have to check out: is it unusual just because I didn't learn the vocabulary word, or there's really a problem? Rashi says. Mafarish, I don't have a Rashi with me here. He says Mafarish Magar there. He says clearly. Okay, so the reason why it's Mafarish Magar because it's a difficult word, and I just added later on when you look over there in Rav and Shmuel, you'll see the Gemara is not very, it's having a hard time with the word. Okay, so I hope I answered your question. The answer is you have to look at it first. That's the beauty of this method. Look at it first, and then you get a sensitivity to whether this word is universally difficult or just because you're ignorant. But that's low-level stuff, okay? You know what I mean? Low-level, okay? If you're low level, you're low level. But the point is, throw yourself into the text and say, what does it mean in common sense? That's the first move. After you do that and you've highlighted the problems in the text, then go to Rashi and say, hey, you know, does he have the same problem that I had? Now, if he didn't, why didn't he? Well, maybe Tosfos had that problem. Maybe the Rosh had that problem. Or maybe the problem is not a problem. That's also a possibility. Okay? It's highly doubtful that a good problem is something that they didn't think about. Okay? Could happen. You could have that Yochelik in Torah, you know, but it's highly improbable. So, but if it's a good problem, you'll see, lo and behold, they're going to talk about it because they're looking also at the text too, of course, with a much more refined eye, and that's why we're going to go and look at them. But his beginning point, which I feel is so important, and I keep emphasizing it, is put yourself into the text. Don't read everything and then come to the conclusion that the earth really goes around the sun. Okay? Look at outside and what's going on. Look at the text. What does it say? I just can't tell you how many times what I do. I tell you what I do. I do very simple things. I throw a Mishnah on the board. I ask people to explain it to me. That's all. And I use visual logic. I just break it to its parts. Okay? So I did this in one class that I taught, and someone came in and said, the Mishnah Berurah says differently. That's not the Peshat in the Mishnah Berurah. I said, the Mishnah Berurah. I want to get to the Mishnah Berurah, but before I can understand the Mishnah Berurah, I want to see what it says. Then I can understand why the Mishnah Berurah says what he says. I'm also going to get there. I'm not going to not get there. You think I'm just saying with the Havamina that Hashem has a hand. I'm also going to move to the Maskana. But I want to know how they got from the simple text, and I just cannot emphasize how important this is. This puts a person in learning. It makes learning exciting. It makes you see the problems. It makes you sensitive to the problems. It helps you develop a das Torah to answer problems. And it makes learning a joy and not just a question of memorizing the Manhattan telephone book. And learning really is a joy. Okay, but this is what has to be done. Okay, we'll stop at this point. Okay, we spoke a lot today, a lot of abstract learning and a lot of good Dr. Gemara. But these are basic things. I really am of the opinion that people should be taught these 4 books. That's Derek Tfunos, Sefer Gayon, Sefer Melitza, and Dr. Gemara. And I did not discover them. I got it from my Rebbe, got it from Reb Davis. But I see over and over again that conscious learning gives you joy and excitement and puts you in the basic as a participant and not just a observer. And that makes learning very, very exciting because, as I said, the learning is exciting. It's not just a question of memorizing the telephone book. It's really, really exciting, and they're talking about real issues, just that no one happens to be telling you what the tools are. And these great rabbis, unlike if I wrote a book on the tools, I wouldn't be able to write, maybe one line. But these great Rabbanim that we're talking about are experts. They're the Talmudic masters. So when they tell you these rules, it comes from a deep understanding of going through Shas and going through learning. And it's saying here's the result of our great learning. And just learn the tools and you'll consciously be knowing what we're doing. Here's the rule book, so you'll be able to play the game. Here's the manual, so you'll be able to run the computer. Isn't that nice?
Yep.
Fascinating. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay. Everyone should have...
Okay.
Okay. Have a great week to everybody. We'll keep continuing. And you should have a bracha and tzlacha to understand Hashem's great Torah.
Okay. Rav Chaim, if you're going to need help with the file, send me an email.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to try to do it myself and split it up. How do you split it up? Okay. Maybe I'll stop the recording.
I'm using a tool called AVS Video Converter.
Yeah. Does that split the file also, by the way?
Well, what basically you do is you mark parts of it that you want to exclude from a conversion.